Alright guys, welcome to Next Gen Rugger. So as the title alludes to, we're going to be looking at some of the top schools in the country for the 2020 season, sort of a season preview. But before we get to that, I've got to make an official statement of sorts. I guess this is like the sort of first time that I'm doing something like this, and it's something I wasn't expecting. But let's go ahead and give it a try. So look, I got contacted by some people associated with Paarl Boys, and look, it wasn't anything negative. And they were, they were very, very responsive, and overall, I thought the interaction was very good because what happened is that they just wanted to say their side of the story with regards to the World Schools Festival. Now, as I said many times in that presentation, it was secondhand information. And look, I didn't realize it was political. I didn't realize I was going to ruffle any feathers. You guys know that I try and stay away from controversy a lot of the time. I don't really comment on schoolboy poaching. I did make a video on St. Kitts, but I mean, that was like international news, and it is a whole bunch of schools against St. Kitts. But if it's like a school versus school scenario, there's some bad mouthing and all the rest of it. I try to stay away from that because ultimately it distracts from the players. So when I did the video on the World Schools Festival, it very much was based on secondhand information, like I stated. And I didn't realize it would cause any controversy. But I've upset some guys, and like I said, they weren't negative. They weren't cucking all over me or anything like that. But they just said, "Look, we just need to say our side of the story," and they did. And I thought it was fair play to them. And I just sort of wanted to make a statement saying, I didn't intend to cause offense to anyone. I've got a hell of a lot of respect for Paarl Boys as an institution, as a rugby school. It's a fine institution, and nothing that I said there was really meant to cause any offense. So if I did cause any offense to anyone in the Paarl Boys community, I do apologize. It was not my intention, and trust me now, I'm not going to even report on a story because I'm not a journalist. You know what I mean? But in a way, I guess I'm starting to go into that journalism thing with commentary and all the rest of that type of stuff. This type of video. I mean, as the views increase and the subscribers increase, I guess I got a responsibility to find out all angles of the story. Now, that information did not come firsthand from Carrynet Marketing, and it did not come firsthand from Paarl Boys. It was my interpretation of speaking to a lot of different people. So yeah, it was really irresponsible on my part, I guess, but I did not know it would cause any controversy. And like I said, the guys were very amicable. They didn't cause any trouble. They weren't negative toward me or the channel or anything like that. And the guys I spoke to, I've got a hell of a lot of respect for them, just like I've got a hell of a lot of respect for Paarl Boys. So let's move on from the politics and my misstatements, if you want to call it that. And I'll just, report on the basics in future, and then hopefully no issues like this will arise in the future. I think there are a few key industry guys I've spoken to, that have showed they've got knowledge. One of them actually phoned me as well, and I'll definitely go to them for advice, just in case something raises some controversy and all the rest of it. I don't want to get involved in the politics and the nitpicking and all the rest of that, but inadvertently I did through that last video, but it was not my intention. Anyway, I'm blathering on here. Let's get to it. You guys aren't here to listen to that. So the talking points for today, we're going to be looking at schools who could be in the running for the top 10. I've divided them up in the following categories. I've got the contenders. Like, these are teams that are not normally in the top 10, but I think they can give it a go. Then we've got the usual suspects, teams that are normally in the sort of top 10 region. And then the dark horses, teams that I think that will really surprise us all this year. And then the champions, the sort of teams that I think will compete for unofficial national champions this year. So let's get on to it. Let's start with the contenders. First up, Maritzburg College. The class of 2018 under-16 team was ranked in 6th place, and the 2019 under-16 team was also ranked in 6th place. Some players I like: Sia Ngiza, a loose forward. You got Kent Goodega, a fly half. Now he's the son of Udo, who is a Maritzburg legend. Then you got Ati Macheke, who's a prop. And then in terms of a young gun, I really like the look of Wile Takata. He's a loose forward. Definitely keep an eye out for him. Now, when it comes to the young guns, guys, I'm not necessarily saying they're definitely going to be playing first team this year, but you should be keeping an eye out for them because obviously next year it's almost a guarantee. So, well, look, Maritzburg have had a steady decline over the last decade and a half. I think that's fair to say. I mean, if you look at historically, they're number one in KZN, and it's not even close. But it does look like there's a huge rebuilding effort taking place, at the youth levels. It looks like they're going to have the same front row, which means there's going to be a solid foundation laid. And I think if they're not top 10, they'll be disappointed. I think Maritzburg need a top 10 finish this year and to make a big statement because they need to attract those high quality rugby players that they were that they were able to attract in the past. Moving on to Helpmekaar. So, 8th place, the 2018 under-16s, 2019 they were 27th. Players to watch, I'm really excited to see this combo, Sebastian Watney at fly half and Melbert van der Spey at centre. They look like great players. In terms of young gun, keep a close eye on Diego Cupido. He's a wing, a lot of pace. So, in terms of my comments, they'll be pushing very hard for a top 10 spot. I think they've got a hell of an exciting backline, and they'll definitely be one of the top vol schools. I do think there'll be a bit of improvement on the 2019 team. I think we just got to hope that the forwards can give the exciting backline players some front foot ball. So it'll be interesting to see how their year goes. Then we move on to Jeppe. As under-16s, this year's group is 11th. They're supported by a 2019 team that is ranked 60th. In terms of players to watch, keep a close eye on Justin Calamer. He's a lock, very big boy, a lot of power. Then you've got Satraba Makwena, who's a centre. And then in terms of a young gun, I like the look of Ayanda Tsungu. He looks like a nice little prospect. I think they'll be very competitive this year. The rugby program looks to be developing nicely overall. But the whole thing with Jeppe, and it's a problem with English schools in general, not only Jeppe, but it's very hard for them to impose themselves physically on the Afrikaans schools. I often say the Afrikaners in South Africa are almost like our islanders. I mean, just born with power, like raw power, and genetically built to play rugby, to fight and play rugby. That's what they're genetically bred for. And that's why it's very hard to sort of impose yourself on them physically. I remember when I played as a youngster, every time you played in Afrikaans school, you were going to get hurt. I mean, even if you won the game, you weren't going to win the battle. Now, I think their derbies will be fierce, and I think they could be top 10 provided they stay injury free, because I'm worried a bit about the depth coming through from the grade 11 class. So it'll be an interesting year, but I'm excited to see Jeppe play. Then we got Oakdale, as under-16s ranked 30th, but they're supported by a very strong group, a very strong group. They're ranked third in the country, the grade 11s. In terms of players to watch, Cornelius Ralls at lock, very promising player, a hell of a lot of ability. I'm very excited to see him this year. And then also Tino Tende Signe, the wing, searing pace, really impressive last year, and I think this could be a breakout year for him. In terms of a young gun, you got Dean Hinnis, very powerful prop. And in terms of my comments, look, they're always a powerful outfit. I think they'll be pushing really hard to get to top 20. They've got exceptional depth. I mean, the grade 11 is sort of a potential golden generation. I think next year they're going to be extremely strong. Now, as always, they've got big forwards, but I think that's paired up with exciting backs. And I think at the very least, we can expect some good, entertaining rugby played by these guys this year. So let's move on to the usual suspects. So Glenwood, as under 16s, ranked 19th. Last year's under 16, 7th. In terms of players to watch, Henk Goos, brilliant player. Keep a very close eye on him. He should be knocking on the SA Schools selectors' doors this year. Nico Steyn, what more do we need to say about Nico Steyn? I've spoken about him several times. You put that green and gold jersey on him right now because he's walking into the SA Schools team. And then you got Siko Nanto, yet another guy from Glenwood that could be knocking on the schools for the SA schools door. Very promising player. And in terms of a young gun, I really like Noko Mdleche. He's a loose forward. I'm very excited to see him play this year. So, the Green Machine have been very dominant for the last decade, definitely the dominant KZN school. And I think in Nico Steyn, they're definitely one of the brightest prospects in the country. They're going to be supported by a good grade 11 group, so there shouldn't be any depth issues if there's some injuries. I think they're going to fight very hard for the top 10 spot, but maybe, just maybe, this could be the year they usurp from the KZN throne. I mean, I think there's a lot of more competition in the KZN region this year. And I think it's a year where a lot of schools will think they can actually push Glenwood to the limit. I think a couple of them did have some victories over Glenwood in the under-16 year. So it should be interesting. But, Glenwood could probably and will probably continue their dominance. Just a very, very strong rugby school. Definitely one of the top programs in the country. Then we move on to Affies, 9th rank for their under-16 year, and they're supported by a group that was ranked 12th last year, the under-16s, this year's under-17s. Players to watch, Reinhard Ludwig, very, very good lock, and Willy Potgieter looks like a very good prospect as a loose forward. In terms of the young gun, Leighton Horn, scrum half. Again, guys, like I say, I don't know if the young guns will necessarily be playing firsts, but I think Leighton Horn definitely will be knocking on the door. As usual, very solid forward pack. When does Affies not have a solid forward pack? They got a young backline, so I think that they might be a bit less predictable than years before. I think the thing with Affies is they play very much like a blue bull style of rugby. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because let's face it, the Blue Bulls have been one of the most successful franchises, or the most successful franchise in South African history. But I think when you play an open rugby with throwing the ball around at schoolboy level, basically what ends up happening is that sort of more conservative approach can come back and bite you. And I think we saw that in the Christchurch boys game last year. I think on paper, Affies should have very easily won that game. But I think, Christchurch were just willing to be more adventurous and throw the ball around, throw caution to the wind. And some of those risks paid off. They don't always pay off, but sometimes they do. So I'd like to see a bit more, like a bit less predictability from the back line, and let the forwards lay a solid foundation, and let the back line create some magic. I mean, what do you have to lose? Well, I suppose besides some games. Now they got some players that have first team experience. Because, Affies were heavily affected by injuries last year. Heavily affected by injuries. So a lot of the guys that were under 17 last year, that are under 18 this year, actually do have some first team experience. There's a lot of expectation due to the centenary year. Affies is turning 100 this year, so congratulations, Affies. Wishing you all the best. Can't wait to see you guys at the World Schools Festival. Hope you have a heck of a rugby year. It's a proud institution, and I think we all wish them the best for their 100th anniversary. Also, there's a new director of rugby that's been employed, and it seems that they're going into a new direction. I don't want to comment too much on that because I don't want to speculate, but I think there could potentially be a new era for Affies rugby. So, moving on to Gasfontein. This year's group was ranked 12th in the under-16 year, supported by a group of grade 11s that were ranked 40th in the under-16 year. Players to watch: Rowan Kluti, fantastic little scrummy. You got Alberto Sadi, who's a centre, very, very good player. Then Hardis Rothman. I think Rothman played for Ermelo when he was under 16 level, if I'm not mistaken. Remember, I don't want to speculate too much, but I think he was at Ermelo, and he played a Grand Coma week for Mpumalanga Pumas, and I heard amazing things about this guy, so I can't wait to see what he can do this year. And then in terms of a young gun, keep a close eye on Dylan Oppold. He can play centre or wing. Should be an exciting prospect for this year. And look, Gasfontein's program shows no signs of slowing down. Look, a lot of people have spoken about a continued reliance on Cape imports, and I don't think that's the case. I mean, look, they do bring players from the Cape, but I mean, schools from all over the country bring players from throughout the country. So Gasfontein aren't alone in this, but I think what they're doing is they're giving guys an opportunity to play at the highest level and also to make use of their fantastic facilities. So that's the whole thing, is that they're creating great opportunities. But a lot of guys have commented on, the reliance on Cape imports. I just wanted to dispel that sort of myth. I think they're also developing a really good rugby program internally. And a lot of the guys from this year's team will actually have been at Gasfontein from grade 8. I think if you take a look at the grade 11 group, I think there might be a major concern in terms of depth. Let's say like 4 or 5 key players get injured. On paper, the grade 11s aren't going to provide a lot of cover. And that's why I think they should be top 10, but obviously injuries permitting. And for me, last year, they were the complete surprise package. I mean, they had such a good team last year. Very entertaining to watch. And a lot of those players that played in last year's Gasfontein team are definitely going to become household names. Moving on to Monument. So this year's group was ranked 5th in the under-16 year. Last year's grade 11s ranked 38th, and look, they got a lot of quality players, guys. A lot of quality players. Now, I've mentioned 3 here. Heiko Pullman, who's a prop. Herschel Goodman is a utility back. From what I've heard, they might be playing him on the wing this year. And like I've said before, I'd like to see at fullback or fly-off. But, they're coached by an unbelievable coach who knows his stuff a lot better than me. Otherwise, I would be bloody Monument coach. So, just my opinion. So then you got Reynard Mouton as well as a loose forward, absolute beast of a player. And there's another kid called Ethan Steyman. I've not mentioned on the list here. He's a great player as well. And then I've heard, rumor has it, that there's a young lock that's coming this year into his grade 11 year. I don't have his name. I've just heard him being spoken about. And apparently this kid's a monster. Apparently he is a big boy and he's got a big future ahead of him. And like I said, I don't know what the kid's name is, but he's coming from another school into his grade 11 year. And apparently he's like the real deal. Very exciting prospect. Apparently really tall, really strong. So it should be exciting to see. And then in terms of a young gun, Waldo van der Berg looks like a very good player, a centre. I think it's going to be a big thing having lost Henko Venter. There's a big space to fill, but if Waldo plays first team, he's going to have 2 years to sort of fill that gap, so to speak. Now, one of the things with Monument, and this is a comment on a lot of the Vol schools, they always have long seasons. I think, I sort of feel that if they could limit their seasons to 15 to 17 games, they'd have a far better win-loss ratio. Now, I'm extremely excited about this team. I think there's an absolutely brutal forward pack, and a backline led by Goodman can do some real damage. Almost half of the 2019 team, which was a solid team, are going to return. And I think they'll definitely be a top 10 finish, and they'll probably push very hard for a top 5 spot. Moving on to Grey High, ranked 17th as under 16s. The support group's pretty strong, 10th. Players to watch, definitely Saviwe Sudani. He's a wing, searing pace. As far as I know, this is going to be his 3rd year in the first team. Then Lachlan Goliath, he's a centre, very promising player. Young gun, keep a close eye on Divan Moss at fly-off. And I think they'll definitely be Port Elizabeth champions again, and definitely one of the top Southern region schools. I think they'll be in a par with the 2018 team, which is, great locally, very dominant locally, but nationally, I use the word average here, but I don't say average. I'll say just above average. You know what I mean? I still think there's a big gap between them and your sort of elite or A-level schools. I think they got good depth from their grade 11 players. Now they've got a very speedy and exciting backline, but the only question is, will the forwards be able to step up to the challenge? Then we've got Selborne. They were ranked 7th as under 16. Supports ranked 18th. Players to watch, keep a close eye on Josh van Vreden. I've just did a highlights package on him. Very, very promising player. I put Sibu Jalvu down here as a fullback. Now he is under 18 this year, but I'm told he's left school, so I'm not 100% sure on that. Warwick Dade fly off, and then in terms of the young gun, keep a close eye on Adam du Plessis. And now, look, they've been the dominant border school for quite a long time, and I think a lot of that's due to the bulk of talent heading towards East London. It's definitely been a strength of Selborne and has somewhat diminished their competitors. I think this year they have to push hard for a top 10 position. I think the loss of Piwe Nomlomo as their coach will be felt. They're transitioning to a new coach this year. Nomlomo is definitely a very, very bright prospect there in terms of coaching. I think he can go very far. Look, I think what will happen is that they'll be very dominant in the Eastern Cape in general. I do have them down as probably the Southern region winners. I just think that the national fixtures need to be a lot more friendly to them. So in terms of Outeniqua, second place as 2018 ranking, and then they're supported by 19th place, grade 11 group. In terms of players to watch, Johan Jordan is a prop, very strong player. He'll be supported nicely in the front row by Francois Breitenbach at hooker. And then Chad Josias at Flav, also a very exciting player. And in terms of the young gun, keep an eye on Ludwig Muller. Now, they are a usual suspect, but I think you can definitely put them down as a dark horse as well. A lot of big things are probably going to be expected of them. They've got many stayers with first team experience. A lot of guys that played first team last year are coming back this year. And last year, although they didn't have the best win-loss ratio, they played the top schools and pushed a lot of them far. So I think this is going to be an extremely strong Outeniqua team, and I think there's going to be a lot of expectation on them. A brutal forward pack, going to be a very dangerous front row, and I think it'll be one of the best in the country. I think they're going to be pushing extremely hard for a top 5 finish. And don't be surprised if they could inch closer to the top as well. I'm very excited to see Outeniqua this year. Boland Landbou. So on paper, the 2018 rank, 62nd place. Supported by a group of grade 11s that were 22nd. Players to watch: Marco de Wit. You guys know I'm a fan. Did a highlights video on him. Also down to earth and humble guy, so really looking forward to see him, break out the season. Keenan Wenzel, he's registered as like a wing or fullback, according to Saru, but apparently he can play fly-off as well. So let's just call him a utility back, but definitely someone that'll be knocking on the door for SA schools. Also, Gerhardus Moelman at fullbacks, very exciting. And in terms of a young gun, I really like the look of Gustav Loubser. He's a hooker. So I think it's fair to say that we should never discount the farm boys. I mean, they are hard as nails. If there's one thing you can't deny about Boland Landbou is they play hard rugby. I always enjoy watching them play. It's a small school and they always punch way above their weight. But the thing is, with being a relatively smaller school, injuries can take their toll. So if they end up losing 3 to 4 players, what can end up happening is that the whole season can spiral out of control. So I think they'll push hard, or probably will get within the top 20. You can't really base the whole season on what they did as under 16s. I think they developed a lot, and they got some good depth, and they're obviously a very proud rugby school, so they're going to be pushing very hard. So I think they will get into the top 20, and maybe they'll be knocking on the door of the top 10. We'll see. It depends what the injuries do. Okay, then Paarl boys. They were ranked 32nd in the country as under 16s. Now, the class of 2019, this year's grade 11s were ranked 2nd. So in terms of players to watch, I really like the look of Cameron Hanekom at loose forward. Great player. And then obviously Sebastian Lombard. He was one of my favorites to watch last year. He's a powerful prop. I think he was the only grade 11 in the first team last year. And last year's Paarl team was extremely strong. So really looking forward to see what Lombard does this year. I definitely think he'll probably be, there and thereabouts with the SA school selection. I mean, it should definitely be a walk-in for him, actually. I mean, he's a great prop. In terms of a young gun, this kid is special. Kompion von Ludwig. Very special player. Keep a very close eye on him. And I'm going to break my rules, guys. I have to break the rule because I only want to mention one young gun, but I have to mention another young gun. This kid's name is Luca Ribbons. I think he's a loose forward. Keep an eye on him as well. Keep a very close eye on Luca Ribbons. He's going to have a hell of a year as well. So, yeah, breaking my rules, but, who cares? On paper, they sort of look like one of the weakest Paarl boys teams in a decade. But don't discount them. They're going to be backed by a potent grade 11 squad, and that's going to definitely up their chances. But never write them off. I mean, you write Paarl boys off at your peril. So, despite the 32nd place ranking according to SA School Sports in their grade 10 year, I think they still should be pushing towards a top 10 place. I mean, that's a proud rugby school, the proud history. So they're not going to let their first team, ranked 32nd in the country. I don't think it'll be anything close to that. So definitely will push for a top 10 spot, maybe even top 5. I think there will be a slight drop off in terms of the previous years because the bar has been set so high. I mean, you're looking at 3 unbeaten seasons and then a great team in 2018 and a fantastic team in 2019. So they've got high standards to adhere to, so to speak. But as I said, you never know what's going to happen. So, yeah, that should be a surprise package, so to speak. Roos, apparently ranked 40th. In the under 16 year, supported by a 2019 class of 16th place. In terms of players to watch, keep an eye on Friedrich Walbach, powerful prop. You've got Armand Maritz, very, very strong loose forward. Luke Berger, fantastic player, searing pace. Really looking forward to seeing him this year. Definitely should be up there in the try scoring charts. Then there's a youngster named Jordan Fenter. I've got him down as a lock. But you should take a look at this kid. He's a big boy, guys. And I'm not the smallest guy in the world, but even at my size and my age, I definitely wouldn't want to be on the field competing against this guy. Now, the thing with him as well is that he went through a tragedy as a youngster. I'm not going to get into that too much, but he came back from it, and he's come back stronger than ever. And it shows a lot of character. So, that's the difference between becoming an exceptional athlete and becoming an unfulfilled talent. It's how you respond to adversity, and this guy's responded to adversity very well. In terms of the young gun, keep an eye on Joshua Africa, very speedy wing. So, much was expected of the Paarl team in 2019, and let's face it, guys, I don't want to speak ill of schools, but they didn't deliver on expectations. I think a lot of it had to do with playing at the Sanex Festival. Now, maybe there's a power of low expectation in 2020, so they won't be under as much pressure. They got a lot of grunt in the forwards, and I think with Luke Berger, they got a very deadly finisher. Now, Paarl should always aim for the top 10. But maybe this year's a little step too far. You don't know. They'll probably still be a great school. But the thing is, the Western Province League is going to be absolutely brutal in 2020. So, I mean, if Paarl were based in the KZN region, for example, they'd continually be a top 10 school. But the problem is when you're facing some of the elite schools in the country and you're playing in a league this year where there are teams from the southern suburbs as well, for example, that are packed to the brim with talent. It does get interesting. So, the dark horses. So, these are the guys that sort of flying under the radar and, could spring a few surprises this year. So, let's move on to Westville. So, 14th place rank for this year's matrics as under 16s, backed up 11th place grade 11s. Players to watch. You got Pumi Zeko, powerful prop, Ngobi Mkize, center, and Basa Nonki at fullback. So those 3 players are very, very potent. The young gun, Bryce Culvert at hooker, looks like a very, very good prospect. Very excited to see what he can do. In terms of the comments, look, Westville had some great teams in the early part of the century, but it seemed to have faded a little bit. But I think they're making a comeback, and maybe there's a silent coup to topple Glenwood. I mean, they got quite a few stays. They're going to, guys coming back this year from last year's teams that are definitely going to be making their mark on KZN rugby. Mkize is a very, very special player, especially. I think this guy's definitely going to be in the running for SA schools, and I think he could become a household name. I'm very excited to see him. Then moving on to Muller Park, 18th place rankers under 16, supported by a group of grade 11s that are ranked 9th. 2 players that I'm very excited to see, Tian Langer the hooker and Lincoln Adams the center. In terms of young gun, keep an eye on Kevin Lock the prop. Definitely a very interesting player. So, look, I think 2019 was a letdown in the greater scheme. They won the Versier Beker, okay, but there was extremely high expectation because last year's group as under 16s beat Grey College. They were extremely strong group. But the problem is they often lose their best youth players. So I think this year I don't expect them to be as strong as they were in 2019, but I still think this is a team to keep a close eye on. I think they could spring a few surprises this year. Then Jansen, as grade 10s and under 16 year, they were ranked 13th, backed up by a group of grade 11s that were ranked 66th. Players to watch: Van Groenewald, very exciting loose forward, and then Jason Edwards at fullback. I think he can play fly-off as well. I think this guy can play all over the backline actually, but he's a very underrated player and very much under the radar. You should keep an eye on him. Look, he's not like a household name in terms of like some of the other players that I mentioned that you'll recognize the name immediately, but still keep a close eye on him this year. He's very, very exciting and a very underrated player. In terms of young gun, Zander Zyman, loose forward. So yeah, he looks very promising as well. So they're always a physically imposing team, but 2019 was not their best season. I definitely expect them to be much improved in 2020. I think they'll push hard for a top 10, but probably for just outside. So I think, between 11th and 15th place, that's my estimation of where they'll end up. But still very exciting very excited to see how their season goes. Then Droste, the Boland boys. They were ranked 16th as grade 11s, grade 10s, backed up by a group of grade 11s that are ranked 30th. In terms of players to watch, I like the look of, the hooker lock combination here, Ruan Foster and Rob Adelaide. In terms of young gun, keep a very close eye on Percy Besson at centre. Looks like a very interesting player. And look, they're always a school to watch. They always play good hard rugby and they always punch above their weight. They're not like what you'd call a superstar name school, but they always, they push the superstar name schools very hard. And rumor has it that there's a certain international coach that's going to be helping them out this year, so that should be very interesting. They're going to have strong competition. I mean, they do play in the Western region. And, another thing they have to focus on is to finishing off the game strong. They often lose the big games by the slimmest of margins. I think their forward pack's going to be beast, but what I'm really excited to see is the back line. That should be very exciting. So I think the forwards are going to provide the backs with quality ball, and entertaining rugby should be the order of the day. Really looking forward to this watching this team play. Bishops. So they were ranked 4th as under 16th, backed up by a group of grade 11s that ranked 8th. Players to watch: Connor Evans at lock. You guys know that he was my number one prospect for 2020. I think he's just an absolutely fantastic player. You got Sasha Ngomo Zulu at fly-off. Kid's got everything it takes to be a complete superstar. I mean, he can go very, very far in this game. He's just, some players are just born with it. He was born with it. And you got Keegan Blackenberg at hooker. I mean, a very, very strong carrier. Does a lot of work. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. I think all three of these guys should be in SA Schools contention. One player I didn't mention here is a centre by the name of Mikey Ford. You guys should really keep an eye on this guy. To me, he's he's a dark horse as a player. I think a lot of people are going to be absolutely shocked at his performances this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. In terms of young gun, keep an eye on Mogamad Khan at scrum half. I think he's got a lot of potential. So, I mean, look, this is going to be a huge year for Bishops. Bishops rugby, when played by great Bishops teams, just has you completely glued to your TV set, or if you're at the stadium, you just can't keep your eye off it. More than half of last year's team is going to be back, and the tight 5 is basically unchanged. So with the tight 5, they should have some high-quality ball provided to an extremely exciting backline. And I think in Evans, they have a true leader in the forwards. And with Sasha, basically dictating play with the backline, it'll be very, very exciting to watch. I think they should be the best English school in South Africa, and I think they should be pushing for a top 5 finish. No doubt about it. They should be pushing hard for that. Then let's move in on to who I think's in contention for champion spots. Okay. First up, obviously, Grey College. I mean, you guys were expecting this, let's be honest. So they were ranked third as under 16s. The class of 2019, this year's grade 11s, they were ranked first in the country. Players to watch, where do you start? You got Sequoia, you got Vumazonke, Nivote, Ricardo Ferri. I think he played flanker last year, but he's registered as a hooker. Akeji, centre wing. Franco Knutze can play anywhere in the back line. JD Willifie at scrum off. Behind JD Willifie, I think you got a guy, I think his name is Tian Ferri. He could be playing first team at virtually any school in the country. This is just a superstar team, as it always was with Grey. But there is a special player that I don't mention here. And it's someone that you guys need to watch very carefully this year, because he's going to be unleashed onto the South African rugby scene. He's a prop named Connie Comfort. Okay. Now, what I really like about this kid is he is built like an old school prop. Now, back in the day, there used to be a prop at EP called Frans Erasmus, okay? And they called him Domkrach. Now, for those of you that don't know what that means, it means carjack, okay? The reason why they called him that was because he never needed it. He was a mechanic, but he never needed it. What he would just do is pick up the car himself. He just had that much power. And I sort of see Connie Comfort as like Frans Erasmus / Domkrach reincarnated. I'm very excited to see him play. He's very powerful in the scrum and very, very mobile, extremely mobile for a guy that size. Now, him, Tilman Nivote, and Ricardo Ferri as a front row is going to be almost unstoppable. So in terms of young gun, look, there's a lot of young guns from Grey College this year, but, I only broke my rules once for Paarl Gym and for Luca Ribbon, so I'm not going to break it again. So we'll just go with Regan Isaacs, a utility back. Very exciting player. Two other players I actually have to mention in the matric year. Jubes Kuman at centre. This guy just looks like the real deal. Very exciting player, steering pace. And then the other one's Ethan Liberty. I think Ethan Liberty and Jubes Kuman could potentially be the centre combination this year with Ikeji out in the wing. And if that's the case, there's just too much quality in this team. I could be speaking about it all day. So in terms of my comments, 2019, one of the best teams ever. So 2020, they're going to have a lot to live up to. But like I said, there's just so much quality available. It's like downright scary. I definitely think they'll be the premier forward pack in the country, and definitely a scary backline. Now, could there be another unbeaten season? Who knows? I think on paper they should be there, but there's one school, in my opinion, and I could be wrong. I'm not an oracle, but I think there's one school that's definitely going to threaten Grey's unbeaten run, and that's who we move on to next. Paarl Gym. So as under 16s, they're ranked first in the country, and I don't think it was even close. They're supported by a group that are ranked fourth in the country as under 16, so there's lots of depth over there. But players to watch. You got Goetze at wing. Absolutely amazing player. Basically won the Paarl Derby last year. Ethan James at centre. He walks into SA Schools team. Matthew Jacobs at fullback. He walks into the SA Schools team. All these players here walk into SA Schools, in my opinion. Right? All of them. Lonell, probably one of the best loose forwards in the country. Eric Besson, amazing. Bradley Davids, amazing. So, yeah, you got 6 players already that could go into the SA Schools team. And I haven't even put John Du Toit's name here. I forgot that name. I forgot to put that name down. I haven't forgotten the name. But John Du Toit is also up there as one of the best centres in the country. John Du Toit could be in the reckoning for SA Schools this year. So, once this backline gets aboard this year, guys, just wait and watch. It's going to be absolutely dangerous. So in terms of young gun, I got Corne Lavanga down as a player to watch, a young gun. He's a very, very strong prop. And in terms of my comments, look, there's no doubt that this is going to be the best gym team in over a decade. And their game against Grey College is going to be like the school game of the century. I'm telling you, you can't pick a winner. It's almost impossible. I think they got all the ingredients there to make a push to become the unofficial champions. In my opinion, the best backline in the country, not even close. Well, Grey College are close-ish, but I still think the Paarl boys' backlines overall is better. The only area where there might be some concern, and not a lot of concern, because they're powerful in every department this year, but where the other schools can take them on is in the top 5. That's the only area where other schools can take them on solidly. Look, Grey College will definitely take them on in all departments, right? That's why I've got these two in my championship bracket, because I think they're very evenly matched. And I think Grey's top 5 is stronger, but then the loose forwards, probably you're looking at Paarl Gym. Halfbacks, you're probably looking at Grey College, and then the rest of the back line, it's probably Paarl Gym. But I'm not saying by distances here, guys. I'm talking about inches over here. So, like I say, if their top 5 can front up against Grey College and provide the back line with quality ball, they're going to be almost unstoppable. I think the only team that could potentially stop them this year is Grey College. I don't think any other team comes close. So it's going to be between these two this year, of course. So, obviously, there's a long one, guys. I've got a lot to get through. So, thanks a lot for taking the time to watch this. Let me know your thoughts and opinions below. If I have forgotten your school, fear not. I did a preseason analysis on a whole lot of schools on the website. I'm going to leave the links below for you to take a look at. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at the PAX 15, basically the team selected by you, the fans, of the channel, and we'll also be taking a look at who I think will be the different regional winners. So I'll make a call on who I think wins between Grey College and Paarl Gym, for example. So look forward to providing you guys with some more quality content. Don't forget to click subscribe. You'll be helping me out a hell of a lot. And yeah, stay tuned for some more big news coming up, guys. Like I said, I'm working on something, and definitely appreciate all the support I'm getting from you. Have a great week further, gents. Cheers. Bye.